is, has had just a brutal week, and that's the Indianapolis Colts, where both Carson Wentz and all-pro guard Quentin Nelson are out 5 to 12 weeks with foot injuries. The coach is Frank Reich. He was asked about the possibility of trading for Nick Foles. Here's what he said.
This is Carson's team, first of all. I mean, he's our quarterback, and we're so excited about having him, and he knows that. This team knows that. When we brought him here for one reason. It wasn't to, he's going to compete, but it wasn't for he's going to come in here and lead this football team. I love Nick Foles. I mean, he plays for the Chicago Bears, and haven't talked to him, but I think he's a great player. I think he's proven that. There's nothing about Nick Foles I don't like. I think he's a winner. He's certainly a guy that fits our kind of culture, but he plays for the Chicago Bears.
That was a lot of words I wasn't expecting to hear Frank Reich say. Schefter, help me with that. What just happened here?
Well, I'll say this. Frank Reich and Nick Foles have exchanged love letters over Get Up over the course of the past week. Nick Foles talking about how much he loves Frank Reich, and Frank Reich talking about how much he loves Nick Foles, but they can't talk to each other because that would be tampering. And the truth of the matter is, Greeny, that's not the way that the Colts are thinking right now, despite their mutual admiration for one another and despite the fact that they've communicated less than Brian Gutekunst and Aaron Rodgers this past week. The fact is the Colts are going to stick with Carson Wentz right now. They are giving him 2 weeks. In 2 weeks from the time he had the surgery, they will reevaluate where he's at in the process and see how he's doing at that time. And if they feel he's lagging behind, and if they feel they haven't seen what they wanted to out of Jacob Eason and Sam Erlinger, the young quarterbacks on their roster right now, then they could explore making a move for a veteran quarterback. But that's not the way they're thinking right now. That's not the way they're operating and planning. And as much as that love affair exists between the coach of the Colts and the quarterback of the Bears, right now a reunion is not on the horizon, though that always could change in the future.
There's so many interesting pieces to this, Lewis, because you've got the Nick Foles of it all, and then you have the Phillip Rivers of it all, who was just there last year and said, he's staying ready, and the possibility, he hasn't closed the door on the possibility of coming back. And there was Reich saying, Wentz is our guy, he's here to be our quarterback. If you were, how this stuff works. If you're in that front office, how are you approaching the situation in Indy?
Yeah, I think right now, I've already, been laid out for how I should approach it, which is I'm just going to have to ride this out, trust in my medical staff, trust in my strength and rehabilitation staff to get Carson ready to go, hopefully by week 1, or at least within that first month of the season. That's really the way I'm going to be taking this right now, because honestly, look, if I didn't back in the offseason when I was really into the meat of my team building phase, look at this and go, look, Carson Wentz is someone who, from a reliability and durability standpoint, is somebody who doesn't get the highest marks. If I'm not willing to then look at the rest of my quarterback room and say, we need a veteran presence on this football team, and we don't really care what it could possibly do to Carson Wentz's psyche, then you're not going to do that now, because I'll tell you this. Look, you heard Frank Reich say this is Carson's team. He's not here to compete with anybody. This is someone who we believe in, et cetera, et cetera. I think the reason why he's saying that, because he knows that, look, Carson needs to be the guy. He needs to be the one that everyone is focusing in on and everyone is kind of pouring themselves into. I just thought, for them to bring in a Nick Foles at this point in time for Carson Wentz, or any veteran quarterback for someone who, to me, has as fragile of a psyche as Carson Wentz, I think that could be something that really just gets things sideways and upsets the apple cart, so to speak, on this football team in that quarterback room in particular. So I think it's kind of, look, they're stuck with what they're stuck with as far as waiting this out, relying on their training staff and getting him healthy, because I think when you start going down the road of bringing in a veteran, that could be something that really throws this thing off kilter.
And Lou, that is a great point, because, again, it is about the physical questions with Carson and his foot, but there are people who believe it is much about the mental aspect of this as anything else. And if they were to go out and bring in Nick Foles, that would send a certain kind of message to Carson Wentz. And I don't know that some people believe that he would react favorably in that regard, which could be another reason yet that they're holding off on doing anything and showing no inclination or indication whatsoever that that's a road that they're going to pursue.
Sacho.
And Schefter, I had a coach, Mac Brown, a phenomenal coach in college. His main saying, he would say, is that fair? Whatever I do, is it fair for you? I think this is fair for Carson Wentz. Let's give him 2 weeks. Let's see how he recovers. If it's closer to a 12-week injury, okay, we're going to make a different decision. If Jacob Eason's looking good, maybe we can sit a little bit. But I think this is fair for Carson Wentz, for Frank Reich to say, you are our guy. You are our quarterback. It's not about a fragile psyche, right? If anything, people could say Aaron Rodgers has a fragile psyche because he's not getting what he wanted. It's about having a coach who believes in you. And I think Carson has that right here in Indy. And I think it's very fair to give him 2 weeks to evaluate your roster. You know you got Phillip Rivers waiting in the wings, so I think it's a win-win for everyone.
There's so much to unpack here. I'm coming back to this as our morning continues for sure. Meantime, we're just getting started. As we roll on, why what we've heard about Justin Fields could...
Tips aren't formed in a matter of a couple days. There's time where the respect grows and the communication follows. You know, I think the greatest relationships that you have, you know, with your friends and loved ones involve conversations that flow. That's all about wanting to have those conversations. And, you know, we've had a couple conversations and been positive conversations.
Okay, the mere fact that they're conversating at all, I find just completely fascinating. So, Schefter, let me come to you. You're the one who's been on top of this thing now for the many months that we've been talking about it. What should we take away from this relationship in progress in Green Bay?
Like you, Greeny, the fact that they're even talking to me is a semi-encouraging development. It's better than not talking at all. Look, you covered the Bulls back in the day. Was Michael talking to Jerry Krause back then? I'll bet they weren't even speaking. So there has been some dialogue between these two particular individuals, and it's pretty well documented what Aaron Rodgers has felt about his general manager in the past and some of the things that have gone on there where they have not kept him in the loop, where they have not brought him into personnel decisions when they told him that they would and they hadn't. And so the fact that they're even communicating, look, why would they not lean on the input and advice of somebody who's been around, who knows the pulse of the locker room, who knows the players, who's comfortable playing with certain people? It's not the way the Packers organization has operated. And again, one player shouldn't be bigger than the team, but an organization should be smart enough to recognize, hey, this is a guy whose contributions should be and could be very valuable. Why would we not factor them in to our process, something they haven't done in the past?
Lewis, I see the face. I follow you on Twitter. You constantly tweet. It's a relationship business. So how do you read this relationship?
Man, this isn't a relationship. You know what they're doing? They're faking it until hopefully they can make it to the Super Bowl. That's what they're trying to do. I mean, and that's okay. We all get that. It's all right. But, Adam asked a great question that, quite honestly, at this point in time, if you're still asking that question, is there really hope? And that is, why wouldn't they rely on and lean on the input of someone who talks to every single guy in this locker room, has been there for, 15 years, has won multiple MVPs, has won a Super Bowl for you, is regarded as one of the most talented players to ever play the game, period, and who has relationships with various different players across all different positions on this team? Why wouldn't you rely on him? As he said, why wouldn't you rely on me to help recruit players to come here? Because guys want to come here and play with me, maybe ask my opinion on certain individuals as you're about to send them down the road. Why wouldn't you just ask my opinion? Well, the reason is because they don't want to. That's why. So now all of a sudden, when maybe 2021 is the last year, now all of a sudden it's boom, we're going to ask you on everything, Aaron. We're going to make this work. This is a great relationship. Come on. Look, I think we're all smart enough to know that that's not the case. But he also knows this. They have a chance to win a Super Bowl. They do have a good football team. And that's what everybody's paid for in the NFL, to win games at the very highest level. So they're going to try and do that. But I don't buy this whole, well, now we're on the road to, making this thing into what it should have been for the first 15 years. I don't buy that in the least.
Sacho, how about you?
Yeah, it seems like he's having an uncomfortable conversation with the GM. That's what I'm seeing between Aaron Rodgers and his GM. I don't think this lasts past this year. I believe that this is it's almost like Lewis said. It's conversation. Let's figure things out. Let's smooth things out for this year. But Adam said the same thing, right? We're not thinking long term. We're going to work together. We're going to live together. We're cohabitating. Why not make the most of our current relationship? My dad's a psychologist. He talks about it all the time. He says you have to get through hard things if you want to build a real lasting relationship. When it comes to family, if family gets into an argument, you just go your separate ways. You were never really a family. And so if Green Bay and Aaron Rodgers and Brian Gutekunst can get through this hard thing, maybe, just maybe, there might be hope for the future. But they're not doing this for the future. They're doing this for right now.
Yeah, I mean, the future consists basically of this football season in which they are one of the favorites to wind up in the Super Bowl. We'll see if they're able to do